Hi everyone, I recently did a video on the character of John Walker from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it got a lot of traction, but it also got a lot of arguments, because I was talking about the fact that John Walker is portrayed as this character that the story wants us to think is just so terrible, or in the case of Falcon and Winter Soldier, just so psychopathic and all of this kind of stuff. And some people argued against me and said that I didn't understand it, that the point in John Walker's story is not that we're supposed to hate him, just that he wasn't worthy of being Captain America. First of all, I disagree that we weren't supposed to hate him, because the original intention of this character was that he was going to be a straight-up villain in the Thunderbolts movie, before they walked back on that only to continue to dog on him. But I'm kind of like, wait, what? His story is that he isn't a bad person, but he just isn't worthy of being Captain America. He just wasn't good enough, didn't have what it took. And Sam Wilson did? No. Just hear me out here. If we're comparing Captain Americas here, and we're talking about Sam Wilson somehow having something in him that made him the perfect choice for Captain America, then I don't understand what you're talking about, at least for a modern lens. Now, I need to clarify something here. When I'm talking about Sam Wilson in this video, I am talking specifically about Sam Wilson, Captain America, when he became Captain America, because he was a completely different character once upon a time. And the Sam Wilson of old, when he was Falcon, I loved that character. I remember when Captain America Winter Soldier came out all those years ago, and we were getting introduced to this brand new character, Sam Wilson Falcon. I remember all the previews of him. I remember being really excited. And I remember Anthony Mackie really delivering upon the character when he first appeared in Winter Soldier in that infamous On Your Left scene. And he really enhanced the story. He gave amount of comic relief, good comic relief, not the MCU kind that they do now, but he gave some good comic relief to the film, gave some good banter, and he really rounded the cast out as somebody who wasn't as jaded and cynical, but still had things to say about the being a veteran and the change that the world was going through. He really did benefit the characters. So Sam Wilson was introduced in Winter Soldier as basically ex-military who's become a therapist for military veterans, and he really believed in Captain America. He was his wingman. He said, I do what he does, just slower. These two hit it off immediately and were very tight. But then when Sam Wilson became Captain America, something changed about him. He started to become a completely different character, or should I say, characters. So Sam Wilson was just basically this jokey character who was a welcome addition to the Avengers throughout the MCU. And Anthony Mackie, very chill guy who played him, I think, very closely to his real life personality. But then something changed when he became Captain America. Now that is the final scene in Endgame, essentially, of Steve Rogers passing the shield off to Sam Wilson, who says he feels like it belongs to someone else, but that he'll do his best, and that he thanks him for the offer. And there are different conversations to be had about exactly who out of Bucky and Sam was going to get the shield. Interestingly, though, Bucky isn't even a part of the conversation, even though he became Captain America before Sam Wilson did in the comics. But the argument in favor of Sam Wilson becoming Captain America at the time was that Sam, he's been Captain America's sidekick all this time, and he doesn't have the baggage of, shooting JFK like Bucky Barnes did. So that makes sense. But then we actually get into Sam Wilson becoming Captain America, and once again, his personality completely changed. Sam Wilson was fun-loving, and he had a great close relationship with Steve, and he was one of the lighter characters of the Avengers team. Like, that was the kind of whole point of him, is that he brought a lighter element into these movies, especially with something like Captain America Winter Soldier having a more serious theme. But when Sam Wilson started to go into his Captain America arc, he all of a sudden became this very cynical, serious, jaded man in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. A lot of retconning goes into this show. All of a sudden, they make it out like Sam Wilson does not want to be Captain America, and he wants to give the shield up to a museum. And it's revealed why throughout the show, that he is very burdened by conditions in America, and he doesn't believe that he should run around representing that country with all of its history, or that that country would even accept him. Now, this is some major retconning once again on the part of Sam Wilson. First of all, it's making it out that Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers did not have the close relationship that the movies have portrayed, even though they were some of the best of friends in the movies. Like, if Sam Wilson actually had a problem with carrying the Captain America shield and representing the country of America, then why would Steve Rogers give him the shield? They were too close for that. It doesn't really make any sense. But it's another retcon not to just say that Steve and Falcon did not have this close relationship, that Steve wouldn't realize this, but it's also a retcon to say that Sam Wilson would feel this way about the country. Why? Because, as we see in Winter Soldier, he does what Steve does, just slower. He was all on the side of Captain America from the beginning. He believed in him. He was supportive of him. This show retconned his entire personality and his relationships with the characters and with the Captain America symbol because it wanted to make a new statement. Now, I don't want to get into all of the politics of the show, even though the show invites that. It's like there's no way you can talk about a show like Falcon Winter Soldier without getting into the politics. But throughout the rest of the show, what exactly do we see that would convince us that he would be a good enough person to be able to handle the mantle of Captain America in a way that somebody like John Walker couldn't? What we see in the show is that Sam Wilson is very sympathetic to the terrorist organization that openly admits and justifies to killing innocent people just to support their cause, just to make some points.
You have to stop calling them terrorists.
There were still people in there.
This is the only language these people understand.
You have to stop calling them terrorists.
We're almost here. Worst case scenario, we kill the hostages. Either way, our message gets out to the world.
These labels, terrorists, they're often used to get around the question why.
Sam becomes so jaded against America and everything that's happened in its past that he says that he believes the Captain America shield should have been destroyed, and maybe he should have done that himself. Once again, who is this character? This was not the best friend of Steve Rogers who believed in him, and I don't think a guy who says something as awful as the shield that Captain America carried and saved so many people with should be destroyed should be Captain America. He clearly does not believe in any of this. And then near the end, it's really confusing of why this new version of Sam Wilson turns on a dime and all of a sudden agrees to wear the stripes and carry the shield. But there's so many other things about Sam Wilson in the show, like when Lamar, Battlestar, the partner of John Walker, gets killed, Sam Wilson has no reaction to it. He never brings it up, and he's not at all sympathetic towards John Walker and what he's going through, just losing his best friend. They completely forget that Sam Wilson is a therapist specifically for ex-military veterans. Sam Wilson himself in Winter Soldier mentions that he lost his best friend, and it talked about what that was like. That actually tied into Steve's storyline. So Sam knows what it's like to lose somebody close in combat. So even if, and I'm being very generous here, even if he disagreed with John Walker's actions or thought he was going too far or thought that maybe he had flown off the handle, why would Sam Wilson, with this background, just completely go against John Walker like that? Why would he be just completely unsympathetic and angry to him and beat him up and just leave him broken-armed there? Why wouldn't he care about what he's going through with just losing his best friend? Heck, why wouldn't he care about the death of an innocent black man at the hands of these terrorists who he is sympathizing with? And then, of course, the last part we need to cover is just somehow they made it so Sam Wilson all of a sudden wanted to be Captain America by the end of the show, and he gets into that infamous "you need to do better" speech after carrying the terrorist who tried to shoot him in the face off like she's the Messiah or something. And while he's arguing with these people and trying to still defend the terrorist organization and saying you need to stop calling them terrorists, they tell him he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he says, "You're right, but maybe that's a good thing."
Look, I get it.
But you have no idea how complicated this situation is.
You know what? You're right. And that's a good thing.
So, on top of everything else, sympathizing with terrorists, not caring that an innocent black man was killed, not having any sympathy for someone who just lost their best friend, as a therapist, all of that's forgotten. On top of everything else, Sam Wilson, this new version of Sam Wilson, who I do not recognize from the original, admits he's politically illiterate. So with all of this stuff piled up, exactly why would Sam Wilson be a worthy Captain America compared to everyone else? But now Marvel kind of realized their mistake. Now listen, you can do shows that deal with heavy topics, heavy political topics. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is probably the worst show of Marvel put out trying to deal with those topics. It dealt with it terribly, but you can do that. But Marvel seemed to realize that, hey, maybe dipping our toes into some intense political discussion is not the right way to get everybody on board when we have a very crowd-pleasing brand. So they were planning originally on doing something similar with Captain America Brave New World, or New World Order as it was supposed to originally be called, but they walked back on it quickly because of just how politicized it was and created a different story. And in this story, we get a completely different characterization for Sam Wilson again. It's not really the one from Winter Soldier. It's not the more jaded one from Falcon and Winter Soldier. What it is like this very, very flat character. Unlike Falcon and Winter Soldier that said that people probably or might not accept Sam Wilson as Captain America, it is now apparently everyone does. Like, this movie in the first few scenes really hammers home that everyone refers to Sam Wilson as Captain America. Like, hey, Captain America, look, it's Captain America. You got that right, Captain America. Like, they have just done a complete 180 that now everyone has just unabashedly accepted Sam Wilson as Captain America. But this new version, I guess version 3 of Sam Wilson, I also, once again, do not recognize. He's like a very flat character. It's like he's just there doing stuff. He's got like a vibranium suit that he wears now. He's got like all of these enhancements given from other people so that they can make up for him not having the super soldier serum. So he's like an amalgamation of a lot of different characters giving him plot armor. But as a character, he doesn't really have an arc or any development in this movie. Like, the only part in this movie where he has any sort of self-doubt is a little bit nearer to the end, where he admits to Bucky Barnes that it's hard for him to be the perfect one all the time and live up to that expectation. And later in the film, when his partner is, he was waking up after being hurt in battle, and he's telling Sam Wilson that he wishes he could be like him. He wishes he could be as amazing as him. And you'd think at this moment, that might be a time for Sam Wilson to talk about how I'm not perfect, I've got a lot to work on. But instead of telling the new Falcon that he is wrong and that he's not always perfect and commending him for what he does, for some reason, Sam Wilson just kind of affirms it and just moves on to saying, it's hard sometimes living up to that expectation. And it's like, what? Like usually when somebody is downgrading themselves and putting you up, usually that's when you go, no, you're a great person. I'm not that great. Like, that's usually what you do. In this scene, though, Sam Wilson just kind of accepts it. Like, yeah, I am what you say I am. But he kind of affirms it by not saying anything else and just moves on to talk about how hard it is to keep up that whole thing of just being the great guy all the time and being the perfect hero all the time. And it's so weird. It's like, who is Captain America at that point? Like, we understood who Steve Rogers was as a character. We understood that he had his flaws in the opening movies. There was just this heart of gold at the core of it all that made him worthwhile to be this hero of Captain America, made him able to take the super soldier serum in the midst of having those flaws. With Sam in Captain America Brave New World, it's like he's become sort of a toothpaste commercial hero. And what I mean by that is that there's a kind of superhero you read about if you actually read comics or watch some of these better movies. And then there's the kind that you see when they're just an icon and they're the side of cereal boxes and all that stuff, where they're the idea of a superhero, that they're super good, but there's nothing behind it. There's no actual character. They're just an image and an icon. And that's what I feel that Sam Wilson is in this movie. I'm like, what drives him to be Captain America? What is his real motivation? What makes him with this sort of strong resolve that he should be Captain America? I don't know what it is. I don't know who his character is anymore because they've tried to change him so much ever since he became Captain America. And as a side note, what's really odd is it's a complete 180 from Falcon and Winter Soldier that tried to portray him as a much more burdened, jaded man, when this time Sam Wilson just constantly has plot armor for everything. Like Falcon and Winter Soldier portrayed him as a guy who couldn't even get a loan for his boat. This movie all of a sudden portrays him not only with a million pieces of gear that make him nearly invincible to even a Hulk, but also with some sort of a Captain America palace, something that Steve Rogers never had. He's just completely accepted by everyone as Captain America, and he even has a Captain America palace. And it also makes me feel like this was written by people who don't know what superheroes even are, because like, check off all the stereotypes. Like, he's got to have his bat cave, like Batman has a bat cave because he's a superhero and all of that. They ironically transformed Sam Wilson from a very burdened character in Falcon and Winter Soldier into a character who like has everything going for him. You know, his biggest problem is just keeping up being perfect all the time, and he's got this big Captain America castle that he lives in, and everyone accepts him as the character. And both of these are completely different from the much more grounded character that we got in the original films. But then we move on to the post-credit scene of Thunderbolts, and we hear that Sam Wilson is filing a copyright claim against the new Avengers because it's not his team. So at this point, it's like, who is Sam Wilson? Is he a jaded and burdened man who sympathizes with terrorists and seems to have forgotten his past as a therapist? Is he a guy who is unabashedly perfect and accepted by everyone as Captain America? Or is he the petty guy who's busy filing copyright claims against a rival Avengers team when the Earth is under attack by Doctor Doom? Who is Sam Wilson at this point? And why has this character just become a split after they wanted him to be Captain America? Well, I'll tell you exactly why it happened. Exactly why Sam Wilson's character became destroyed after they decided to make him Captain America. Because all of a sudden, it changed from Sam Wilson being the Falcon, being his own character that we enjoyed, to Sam Wilson having to be an icon, having to represent something, and all of the disagreements for what that was supposed to be. According to the writers of Falcon and Winter Soldier, he had to represent the grievances that they saw in the world, and so they changed his character accordingly. When Marvel changed their minds about that, all of a sudden he needs to be this perfect character who is this perfect representation of a new Captain America, forgetting that the things that always make our characters endearing is the human flaws, not just being this perfect character where his biggest flaw is that he has to keep up being perfect all the time. They made him entirely flat in Brave New World, and then in Thunderbolts, I guess they just made him into a one-time joke in the post-credit scene because they wanted to tell another joke. So there you have it. Now I'm going to address the elephant in the room now, and I know everyone's gonna say this, is you're saying that Sam Wilson is the worst Captain America. And I say yes, because I think that he's been given the worst writing out of anyone that I've seen. But it's like literally every other character who could possibly even circle the idea of the Captain America mantle would be better at it than the new version of Sam Wilson. Like John Walker being a little bit more of a flawed man, taking on this role of Captain America, making more mistakes, but really wanting to do the right thing. That is more compelling than a guy who is perfect all the time. And he made a little bit more sense than a guy in Falcon Winter Soldier who didn't even seem like he believed in that mantle anymore. Bucky Barnes would have made perfectly good sense as a Captain America because of his history with Steve, because he needed a new direction in life. But for whatever reason, he wasn't even up for consideration, maybe because of the baggage of his past, but there he is as the guy who murdered JFK in this universe, being a congressman. Now, I know what you're all thinking. I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Here I am saying that Sam Wilson is the worst Captain America. He got the worst writing, even though he was their choice to be the new Captain America in the MCU. And yeah, I am talking about the guy who is not white. Yes, I've noticed that. That's what they've made it about. But guys, here's the thing. What I'm talking about here is the bad writing given to characters. But I believe that that is why Sam Wilson, out of all of these characters, was given the worst writing. Why? because Sam Wilson had to be so much of an icon. Here he is as not just Captain America, but a non-white Captain America, a black man playing Captain America, and all that that means to people and all that that has to represent. I think that's what tore his writing apart. In Falcon and Winter Soldier, they looked at it and said, well, this needs to be a representation of the grievances that we feel are in America today. So it became that, and his character became completely changed to facilitate that. In Brave New World, they changed their mind and said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to turn him into someone who everyone accepts as Captain America and everyone loves and everyone looks up to, even though we haven't really done the work for his motivations in here, and we've kind of shot up what his original character was supposed to be. And in Thunderbolts, I guess they just decided to turn him into a joke, and I don't know if that's just shows how they feel about Brave New World, but there you have it. I think that is the problem with Sam Wilson, is as a black man taking up the role of Captain America, there was so much concern about like what that would represent and what that had to be to people that they ended up just pulling this character in so many different directions that he just split apart at the seams. And that's unfortunate because I don't think that Sam Wilson needed to be a bad Captain America. You could have made it work with him. He was a great foil to Steve Rogers. He did have this great background in the military as a therapist. He did seem to have a lot more depth to him in Winter Soldier. There was really no reason why he wasn't worthy of the mantle of Captain America. It's just what they did with him over time. And it really is unfortunate because I think Anthony Mackie seems like a really nice guy in real life who really enjoys playing this character, but they really just tore him apart when he became Captain America and all of the expectation on that. And I don't know if that's really an unpopular opinion, as we saw what happened with Brave New World. But the thing is, I don't think Sam Wilson needs to be Captain America to be a valid character. I loved him as Falcon. I loved it as his own identity and his own personality. And I would rather that the character be treated with, some respect and be an actual great character again, rather than people just tearing him apart sideways with all of that, the differing opinions on who he needs to be as Captain America and what that means. And I wish that when we would get characters who are female or non-white in movies and they have to take up these mantles, that it would stop being so much about the expectation of what this character needs to represent and what they need to be, because I've seen it time and time again with so many characters that just ends up tearing them apart. They look at them less as real characters and real human beings in a fictional world and more as these icons and more about just what they're going to be as representations and not as actual characters, and that is what tears them apart. But I hope I made sense here. Thank you all for watching. Do you think that Sam Wilson's character can still be salvaged after all this? Do you think he can still be salvaged as Captain America? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. If you want to support my work, check out Patreon and memberships, and I will see you guys next time.